Hello there, everybody. Welcome back. This is Jeremy Miller, your host for the Hire and Fire podcast. This is episode number 10. Chad and I again today debating the topic of pessimism versus optimism. So enjoy the episode and we will see you again next week. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Jeremy Miller, your friendly host of the Hire and Fire podcast, also the founder and CEO of Pirate Consulting, along with Mr. Chad Sandy. Hi, Chad.
Well, Happy New Year's
Happy New Year's Eve is when we're shooting this. This is podcast number 10. We are titling this one, The Best Is Yet to Come. This is basically a pessimism versus optimism discussion. Of course, this is going to be career focused and job focused and all that, but this is kind of a lifestyle mentality type thing, which is a very weird dynamic in the sense that you kind of are who you are, but you can change that over time, which is strange. Like for me, I was a pessimist hands down for years. I got it from my dad. My dad used to call himself a realist. Which was a big bunch of bullshit because he was just a pessimist justifying the fact that he was a realist. Now, I can understand there is a legitimacy behind being a quote-unquote realist and trying to kind of look at life, you know, and not have rose-colored glasses on and be realistic and real about what's going on. But
I think most pessimists would justify. That's what they would say. I hear that all the time. I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist. And they're just justifying. But remember, justify is just a lie.
There's yet another dadism by you. Well done. Mm-hmm. Justify is just a lie.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I don't know where this came from with me. Like, even at the height of my career and some of the really, really cool moments, I was still prone to kind of focus on the things that weren't going well. And I think what's helped switch me in the recent past is you go through enough shit, right? Losing jobs, going through a divorce, whether it be financial struggles or things with kids or health or family or all, you know, whatever that is. I've dealt with some of those and others I'm just throwing out. Like it was enough to bear that I almost had no choice but to try and look at the positive because tolerating life through a divorce, for example, is not fun.
Right.
So there's so much negativity going on around you that I was intentionally trying to swing the pendulum.
Yeah.
But before that, I was 100% stuck in the negativity. How my marriage sucked, even if I was making good money, how things at work were super annoying, or what the bosses were doing or whatever. Like I was really knee deep in the negativity surrounding it.
Do you think your pessimism, not to go back, keep using the word justify.
Fire away.
Well, do you think that your pessimism was a subconscious way for you to justify the situation you were in? Well, naturally I'm in this blah blah shitty situation, and then fill in the blank with the pessimistic view towards something.
Maybe. I think if I was being more honest with recollection, you know, the old hindsight's 2020, for me it was I was not very good at accountability. So I felt as though I was doing what I needed to do, and then things were happening to me externally. So then if things were bothering me, I would look at that and I would say to myself, well, everything would be better if blank wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And then I would kind of blame the other person.
Yeah.
Instead of realizing, whoa, wait a second, like I actually have power here. I can maybe twist this situation into a positive. I can use it as a growth opportunity. Maybe someone was calling me out for a justifiable reason. I just didn't have the skill set to know how to do that.
Yeah.
And I didn't wake up with a freaking smile on my face. Like I had a lot of work to do. I have multiple kids. I have a 10, 11, 12 hour a day job. I have a lot of stress. I have a lot of bills to pay. So anything that prevented me from getting that stuff done or made it more difficult was immediately noticeable to me. Yeah. And I'm an emotion on my sleeve kind of guy, so I'd point it out.
So I think I'm one of the fortunate ones in that just for whatever reason, I've always been an optimist. So I've always looked at things, the bad things that have happened, as kind of that's just part of the journey. The whole cliche I use all the time about life being a series of problems, interrupted by an occasional crisis. So for me, I might not be the best example because I've always been generally an optimist. But for you then, you were a pessimist.
Yes.
Okay. And maybe justifiably so. But you've become an optimist.
Trying, at least.
Yep. What happened? What has allowed you, or what decisions did you make, or what changed that caused you to make a decision to start looking at things from a more optimistic point of view?
Well, me, it was a full-blown life reset. I mean, I had a life trajectory that was kind of planned. I got a girl pregnant in high school.
Yeah.
We did what we could to make it right. We kept the baby. It was an adoption versus keeping the baby decision. I got married young. I had more kids young. My wife stayed home, so I had a shit ton of financial pressure. I successfully built a pretty solid, lucrative career. And, just in my mid to late 30s, everything crumbled. The cracks in the foundation, the huge cracks in the foundation of my marriage were exposed. I left a very good paying job to start my own company, and that does not have much rewards at the beginning because it's all work and no fun. I had kids leaving the house, going to college, and then having more children as well, which was yet more stress. It was just a lot of shit. And it was really easy to get bogged down by it. But to answer your question, once everything started hitting the fan, restart the career, end the marriage, handle some of the fallout regarding finances and lawyers and homes and in-laws and children being all torn apart about this, like there was a lot of shit to deal with, and it was so aggressive, and it was bombarding me so heavily that the only way that I could process and get through the day was to try and look at what's going well and to kind of set goals and look forward to accomplishing things and baby stepping my way. And I'm not there yet on the full-blown pessimism to optimism pendulum swing, but it's definitely working.
So, pessimism, optimism, another word for either of those would be your one's attitude.
Yeah, I had a shit attitude for a while there.
But would you say there's a core, and this is a chicken egg thing in a lot of ways, would you say that your happiness, however you define happiness to you, there's a direct correlation to your attitude, whether it was pessimistic or optimistic, or no, not really, because there were times when I was still a pessimistic guy that I was happy? Or do you think there's a pretty strong correlation between your happiness and your either pessimistic or optimistic attitude?
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, the question is, did my attitude directly affect my happiness? Is that a summation of what you're saying?
Yeah. Are you happier being an optimist versus a pessimist?
Oh, that, okay.
Whether life is in the tank or not.
Yes. I think the simple answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
I just think your run-of-the-mill pessimist, if they're listening, or if you know one that kind of immediately jumps into your mind, it's really hard. Like it's almost impossible to think that way. So I think your chicken and egg comment's very, very appropriate, because a pessimist would say, I would be happier if these fucking things stopped happening.
Yep.
The optimist would say, I'm making the best of a crappy situation and I'm happy because I'm choosing to be. Then there are the rarities out there that are just flat out happy. Either they've hit their sweet spot or things improved in their life or whatever the situation was.
Like my grandfather was one of these guys that was just always happy. Yet, if I was assessing his life, honestly, it would be very easy for me to think, how can you always be happy?
You got a lot of shit happening.
You had this business fail back in the 1940s and this one in the 60s, and he had enough go on in his life that if you were being a realist, you could argue, how come you're so happy?
It could have sunk him. Yeah.
But he just seemed to, and he never talked about, me, I spew cliches all the time about being happy despite your situation or whatever, but he never did that. He just was happy. He wasn't happy with an explanation as to why he was happy. He was just happy.
Yeah. And I guess I'm kind of jealous in that regard, just to kind of, with a sense of glee, just embrace the lot in life that you have and just try and find the good in what's going on. I got better at that. It's been a long process. Like, I remember when my kids were in sports very, very heavily, and I have multiple children, but not all of them have been in sports at the same time. But we had this one kind of 2-3 year time frame where I had 3-4 kids at the same time and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm working 10, 11, 12 hours a day, and then almost every friggin' weeknight I have to go somewhere. And that was very frustrating to me.
Yeah.
And then eventually I realized, wait a second, like, I'm making this decision to let this bother me. It's kind of like traffic. Traffic's another good example too. I drive fast. That's the way my personality is. That's the way I operate in most things in my life. So I drive fast too. So I'm in a hurry, more in a hurry than you are. And I'm trying to get around you. And you don't know what I'm doing, and you're living your own life, and I'm frustrated by you. Mm-hmm. So I've had moments where I've given up speeding, like for a Lent or something. And when you find yourself just chilling in the right-hand lane, kind of waiting, and you're forcing yourself to do it, you realize, like, oh, it's just kind of a chill factor.
Yeah.
I'll get there.
Yeah.
Eventually I'll get there, and I won't have as much stress. And
it's a funny story about that is because I just had this happen a couple days ago where, or it was the end of last week, so there was a little more traffic. I was heading home. And this dude was like on my ass, so I moved over.
You sure it wasn't me?
Nope. But this dude, traffic was somewhat heavy, but still going pretty fast.
Sure.
So I moved over, and he sped right by me. And then we got to the exit, the Cloverleaf exit. And I just went over into the right lane and took my time, 65 in a 60. And we get to the Cloverleaf exchange there, 494 to 394 West. And the fucker's right in front of me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm thinking, that guy was in such a big hurry tailgating my ass 3 miles ago. And here we are exiting. And now I'm right behind him.
Okay.
We literally got to the exit at the same time.
Right.
Me with zero stress, just chillaxing. And that guy weaving in and out of traffic, but we still ended up at the same place at virtually the same time.
What's hysterical about that too is, if you've never been speeder guy, is he's very well aware. So he blew by you with a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment, and then knowing that that he hit the next red light or whatever, and then the person's right next to you, like that's a very what's the right word? Embarrassing is the wrong word. It's just you don't get any validation. But there are those moments where if you blow by somebody on the road, maybe even justifiably, like they shouldn't be in the left-hand lane, and you make the green light and they don't, and you feel great because you made that move.
Well, in this case though, once we hit the exit and got back where we're in multi-lane traffic,
he was gone.
No, I wanted to pass the guy and go, hey, I'm still here, big red truck.
Hi.
Here I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, you can fault the logic all you want, but this is a emotional discussion, right?
And maybe that guy was still satisfied.
Well, I don't know, maybe. I mean, it depends. Maybe that's the type of person that didn't even notice who you were or what you were doing, in that you ended up on his ass later because you guys were right next to each other. All I know is the optimism versus pessimism is an emotional discussion, but especially us guys, we're very logical creatures. So I think my fault was that I was taking an emotional discussion and utilizing logic to justify it, And that's where my fault was.
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm unhappy emotionally, things are bothering me, this isn't going well, I don't like the direction, whatever way you want to word it. But then at the same time, you would justify it with logic by blaming somebody else's actions, not understanding that your friggin' emotional response to it is half, if not more, of the problem.
Yeah. Do you think pessimistic people are happy or can be happy?
I think they can be, but I think when you're a pessimistic person, the majority of the times that you're happy are only when things are going your way.
Yeah.
So you just have select moments throughout the day or throughout the week that you really, really enjoy your life, and then you have other moments where it's a drag.
Yeah.
You know, so you go home and you're happy to be home and you're feeling good about work being over, but then whatever else you have to do, children, laundry, cooking, paying bills, that will derail your happiness for a period of time. But what I've tried to do is utilize those to-do activities, doing things with my kids, paying bills, doing laundry, cleaning the kitchen, looking forward to the level of satisfaction that I will feel once it's done. Yeah. So even though while I'm in the middle of an activity that I would deem annoying and frustrating, I'm focused on the end result, not necessarily what I'm going through in the middle. It's the people that are working out and they love working out. And it's like, really, you like working out? But they'd be the first people to admit they don't love working out. Yeah. They like parts of it, but they're really addicted to the feeling of accomplishment and how they feel afterwards.
So, comment, then I have a little story.
Oh.
Okay, so do you think a truly pessimistic person can be successful in their career long term? And the reason I ask, a little story, is when I was in junior college, I played football in junior college, and one of the players on the team was my cousin, a close cousin, who I would also consider one of my best friends, like a brother, so close cousin. And of course I grew up with him, so I knew his personality, and it took about a month of football practice and in a junior college with complete strangers who would have never known this guy, my cousin. And they started, his nickname became Grumpy. He was grumpy. That's what they called him, Grumpy. Because he was just kind of a pessimistic, negative kind of guy. But that's how I always knew him. And I look now, that was 1989. So what are we talking, 30 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And now where he is in his career, kind of doesn't surprise me given his pessimistic attitude in life.
Interesting. Yeah.
So his results of his career, so to speak, now he may say something different, but he certainly, I look at his career and think, well, it doesn't surprise me that you really didn't climb any corporate ladder and you just kind of muddled through life doing your jobs because you were such a negative, pessimistic guy.
I just think when it comes to career, there's so many factors. What type of company do you work for? What type of culture is instilled? What type of an employee or manager are you? So if you work in a department where or let's just say an organization, if you work for an organizational culture that has it's never good enough, we have to be pushing the envelope, you kind of have to have this level of I'm never satisfied. Mm-hmm. And that can come across as unhappy and pessimistic. Because you have to be pushing the envelope constantly about where we're going, what we're doing, who's on the team, how much money we're making, are we improving our statistics, blah, 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 blah.
So let me ask a different question. You as an owner and manager, what does a pessimistic employee look like to you? And that doesn't mean define somebody that we currently have here, but just you as an owner and a manager, what would a pessimistic employee look like?
Well, I mean, the cliche would be negative attitude, always frustrated, things aren't going their way, focus on the things that aren't going their way instead of the things that are. You could throw in like bad for the culture in the sense of like gossiping and shit talking and things of that nature. But again, part of that can be very productive. So if you're unhappy with your results at work and things are not going your way, and that's a motivator, and that's what motivates you, then cool. You can utilize the pessimistic component of your attitude to motivate you to do better or for others around you to do better. But in order to do better, you kind of have to bring this we can fucking do it attitude. So like the pessimism might bring out the lack of satisfaction, but if you're not capable of twisting that into an optimistic outlook of the future, then you're kind of screwed. So thankfully, we haven't had any people here that have gone from motivated and dissatisfied to negative. And there is a difference.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm not in my old company is that's exactly what happened. I was still motivated. I was still driven. I was still performing. I was still giving it my best effort. That was a non-issue. It was just that I was negative about the direction that we were going, and my belief in buy-in was lacking. And that's why I'm not there anymore.
So your pessimism crossed over into this line of like bitterness.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So then how do you, and once you get into that trap, you know, the toilet's already been flushed in the sense that like the water's circling and going down, you know, so you really need to dig out of that hole just to get back to zero because of a perception.
Yeah.
So, you know, but I think almost everybody would agree that they would rather work with people that are happy, optimistic, and motivated. And those tend to be the people that get more recognition, get promoted, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So if you're a pessimistic, focus on the negative person, you can't be surprised, or at least shouldn't be, if you get passed over for promotional opportunities, because it's a safe assumption that you're going to bring that negativity into your supervisory duties, and then that's going to cause strife with employees or what have you. But that's not always the case, of course.
It made me think, what you said there just made me think of, I think it's a commercial for Indeed, where the woman is standing there in the boardroom and they said, and our new vice president is Bob Smith. And they show on the woman, how you will never be passed up for a promotion again, because she goes and gets another job.
Yeah. So that was her motivator to get out of there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm watching the commercial going, well, she was obviously bitter and thinks the only reason she was passed up was because she's a woman. And now she's going to go into the next role and she's going to be bitter if she doesn't get the...
Well, I mean, in general, there's truth to that in the sense that, like, she could feel that way. You don't really know.
Yeah.
But in that sense, right, she was at a decision point in that commercial. Like, am I going to recommit and focus and maybe go for the next round or go to another department, or do I feel like I have to go to another company? And obviously in that circumstance, she felt like she had to go to another company. You know, but...
What about the overly optimistic person? See, when you're overly pessimistic, like you said, you cross that line into bitterness.
Yes.
Where it just... So you slid too far down. Could you have someone that's like overly optimistic?
Yeah.
Or, dude, we appreciate your optimism, but you might need to close some business soon. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting point. I'm struggling to think of somebody that I've worked with directly that was like perma smile, everything is great all the time. Do you have any examples that pop in your head? I just think that's rare.
Yeah,
the person that like can't get enough.
Yeah, my only example that's very recent is just my son, one of the two goalies on my son's hockey team. You know, it's high school, junior gold. And this one goalie is that overly optimistic. And Ryan loves them to death, but Ryan has told me, like, we had this, one game this year where we just got crushed. And he was telling me how in the locker room this guy was just super, and he was the goalie in the game that
got killed. Right.
He wasn't the guy the goalie that didn't play that game, and he's in there just all positive. Hey guys, we'll get them next time. Hey, let's go around the room and everyone think about what one thing you could have done different.
And everyone's like, shut up, Brad.
Like, yeah, I got to get out. I want to go home.
I mean, so the first thing that pops in my head is there's a well-known podcaster, social media guy called Gary Vee.
Yeah.
And he is like happiness, altruistic, positivity, thankfulness in a good way. Like he's trying to bring some of that to a negative, pessimistic crowd, right? But at the same time, he's also real in the sense that he's a Jets fan, a massive Jets fan. Go to every game Jets fan, and they have sucked for years, and he's very well aware of it, and it pisses him right off, right? So even the overly optimistic person still has areas of their life, whether it's a stupid thing like being a fan of an NFL team, that just infuriates you.
The problem I have, you just made me think of this with Gary Vee. The people that I would think of in my career who were overly optimistic, the problem is that they always seem to be the person that already had it so good anyways. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
So I tended to have a bitter response internally to them. So I'm like, well, easy for you to be all positive, overly positive.
Yeah, you're a rich SOB who owns this massive company and blah blah blah.
Or you're the senior manager already who isn't in the trenches anymore, gutting it out day in, day out.
Yeah, but think of how many rich people you hear about that are miserable too. So I mean, you can flip that in a sense. I like his message in the sense that, like, you get to choose, right? So are you going to let the negativity external to you affect you? Even if whether you're a pessimist or an optimist, when you're interfacing with people that are negative that you could put in the pessimistic category, you get to choose whether or not A, you're going to hang out with them, and B, whether or not they are going to rub off on you.
Do you buy into that notion? Are you a proponent of the people who say, every year I do an inventory of the people that I associate with, and I put them into either the positive or
good for me or bad for me?
Right, and I spend more time with the positive people and the optimistic people. Do you buy into that?
Not directly. I think you do become your friends in a lot of way. So if you have people around you that are making bad decisions, right? Drinking heavily, drug use, lack of employment, whatever other thing you want to throw in there, I think there is an argument that you could say, well, maybe those aren't the right people for you. Mm-hmm. I think of it more along the lines of the things that motivate me are being successful in business. So yes, I am more likely to want to hang out with people that are either like-minded with that goal or have already attained it, and that they will help me be able to take on that mentality. So I guess the answer to your question is I'm more likely to say I like these things about the positive people more so than I don't like these things about the negative people, so I'm not going to hang out with them. Does that even make sense?
It does. I call in dating, it would be like a Prince Charming complex where the guy always wants to, be the savior to the
knight in shining armor,
the damsel in distress. Mm-hmm. And so the whole concept of we should associate with people that are positive or going somewhere or have the right attitude or whatever sounds great, but then what if you're the negative person? Under that theory, no one would ever want to hang out with you either. So now you get left behind. So in some cases, doesn't it make sense we should want to help bring up the pessimist? Do you follow me?
Well, I think the subconscious component drives that point home, where when you're in a shitty mood, you're more likely to fake happiness to get along with people around you. Mm-hmm. When you're in a great mood, the opposite is not true. You don't go down to people that are unhappy. You're more likely to want to bring them up to your level, quote unquote, depending upon the day, depending upon what's going on. I think people are too fake in that sense where like if you're having a shitty day, be honest, you're having a shitty day. Because sometimes people do need a pick me up, and there might be people around you, or you could be that person that could pick up somebody else.
But I will say this though, because there was a time in my career where this affected me, where I was the go-getter, positive, optimistic. I'm producing. And then you get a lot of haters when you start to separate yourself from the pack, and then I would go from being humble about my success to almost excusing my success, so I could be more relatable to the the losers in this pile, because now they all like me.
Yeah.
But wait a minute, now my production has dropped. That kind of thing. Maybe I got too concerned with the pessimists and the negative people.
Maybe. I mean, maybe that's the inventory point that you were driving home before, that maybe you do need, and obviously we're literally on the last day of the year. This would be a good time for that, to kind of goal set as to what you want to do moving forward. I'm a believer that hard work accomplishes goals, but it's really, really tough to accomplish your goals day in, day out when you focus on the things that are thwarting your ability to do so. Because it's a subtle difference, but there's a big difference between I don't like this component of my job, or I don't like this stupid process that my company has, so I'm going to bitch about it, or I'm going to figure out a way to work around it that's possible, that can work for me. Because it's a very subtle distinction. And most people grit their teeth, smile and nod, give the boss the bullshit line that they think the boss wants to hear, and then behind closed doors at happy hours in the break room, they're bitching to everybody else about it.
So I've said this to teachers before in conferences, like anyone can teach the straight A students who just, you give them an assignment, they turn it in, they get an A. You have the test, they get an A. The challenge is how do you teach the kids that are struggling for whatever, whether it's their behavior or their actual aptitude. From a management standpoint, again, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, but how do you manage a pessimistic person?
Well, okay, I can only answer that from my own vantage point, and that's that we're a commission sales-driven organization. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to figure out what their motivators are. So for me, it's relationship building. It's who are you? What do you like? What do you want to accomplish? What are the things that wake you up in the morning? What makes you want to perform here? And then I'm going to try and hammer on those things. Because I'm a believer that positive reinforcement is way better than negative reinforcement. However, again, I wasn't always that way. And I think my life-changing experiences over the last year forced me into this reality where it's bitching, complaining, talking down, pointing out people's flaws, etc. It does not motivate people. It just doesn't. Mm-hmm. But then if you're their actual supervisor, challenging them to the level that they're capable of producing at, while helping them see how that could help them hit their goals, is the most likely path to help them do that. If they don't perform, they don't perform, and then they got to go, right? So as a manager, I think you lay that out, you make it clear, you set clear expectations, and if they don't hit it, then you can let them go with a sense of confidence. And then going back to something I've said 1,000 times, if you let somebody go and they're surprised, then that was a management problem on your end. So if they are overly pessimistic and that in and of itself is a problem, you can put that component into their objectives. And then if they can't fix it, they can't fix it, period. And literally that was me.
Yeah.
I mean, my old company was going in a direction that I just didn't agree with. Yeah. They were going down a micromanagement, let's lead to the lowest common denominator of an employee. Everybody is in the same box, and that didn't suit me. And instead of, I just wasn't able to navigate a way to find a win-win. So looking back on it, I stayed too long. I wore out my welcome. They wore out their welcome with me. And then towards the end, both of us are looking at each other like, dude, we this is not working anymore.
Yeah.
So there may not be a rosy end, but you just kind of have to have the line in the sand. And, I think a pessimist can really perform well at work, but they better have an unbelievable work ethic. Because if you're going to be looking at everything around you that's happening around you as happening to you and that you have no control and you just want to whine about it, in the areas that you do have control, you better be crushing home runs. Otherwise, that negativity is going to take over and you won't have a really good leg to stand on in your boss's position. Because think about it. Think about the people that you've worked with that are underperforming, yet they're amazing culture people.
Sure.
Those are the ones that get an extra life or two.
Mm-hmm.
If you have people that are underperforming and they have a shit attitude, they don't stick very long.
Yeah.
So the only way in a professional environment you can have a shit pessimistic attitude and hang on for a long time is by utterly dominating your day-to-day job. But even for me, even after doing that, that wasn't enough, quote unquote, for that to stick. Was it meant to be? Did it run its course? Did I stay too long? Did they keep me too long? I don't know. And at this point, I don't even care.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a...
Can a pessimistic person change, or do they need to be changed?
Oh.
Because the answer is yes to both. Once a pessimist, not always a pessimist, but can they be changed? Or do they have to change on their own?
Okay. Speaking from personal experience again, I can confidently say both, but it comes with a caveat. For me, the only thing that has helped me is life circumstances change so aggressively around me that I had a decision to make. And it was, am I going to stay in negative town, or am I going to look at the positive and make the best of this and rebuild in another way? And for me, the only decision was I had enough evidence to say my old ways were not productive and they weren't bringing me what I wanted. Happiness, contentment, whatever you want to call it. So I made the decision to change on my own. But if it wasn't for outside circumstances, career loss, job change, divorce, kid issues, financial challenges, I don't think I would have ever made that decision. So it was kind of made for me, but I'm the one that had to answer the bell. I'm not there yet, but I'm working my way around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So really good question, though. That's the best chicken and the egg way to frame up that question. Can you take an optimistic person? Can you do the Job from the Old Testament? Can you take somebody who has everything going and have everything in their life be ruined and they successfully keep positive? I mean, the Job story is yes, if you haven't read that book.
Well, to that I would point to my grandpa again, that, he had that. He lost multiple businesses, or he had multiple businesses fail after being on top of the mountain for decades and was still happy. I don't know how that's where I think that was just his fabric of his being, because I don't know if I could have done that, and I consider myself sort of a naturally happy guy.
Do you, let's go to your parents. Did either one of your parents have that attribute?
Naturally happy?
Yep.
Yeah, I would say my dad was.
Okay.
And my dad, we owned a couple different businesses. In between, he was a bricklayer all of his life, but in between there, we had an awning business. We had a little convenience store in the small town I grew up in. Some things worked out, some things didn't, yet he was always sort of the same.
Because Gary Vee 100% credits his mother for that attitude. Mm-hmm. His dad was an immigrant. Well, they were all immigrants, but his dad more so than him because he moved to the States when he was so young. But his dad ran a liquor store and was so busy that in his words, he didn't see his dad like any more than once a week until he was like 14 years old. So he was raised by his super optimistic mother, and then his business acumen was forged around his dad, combinations of what he didn't want to be, and combinations of the natural business talent that his dad has.
Yeah.
So he would 100% credit a bit of fate and circumstance as to why he is that way. So when I have my kids now, I keep them as busy as I can. I bring them with me wherever I go. I don't get babysitters. I'm trying to make the best of it, even when I'll still voice frustration with traffic or any other situation. I'm not perfect, obviously, but
Yep.
I'm very, very intentional to ensure that while I'm with them, they have my undivided attention, and that I'm making the best of all the things that we have. And that's the only thing I can do to bring myself happiness and to help them through this particularly challenging time in the family, and hopefully be able to right some wrongs as a parent that I did with my older children and be able to fix that with the youngers.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, but this is an attitude that affects life, right? This is not just your career, but it directly impacts your career as well. About what you want to accomplish.
Yeah. Because it's interesting because I've said, I feel like I'm a naturally happy guy, just generally happy. Yet, I would say 2 of my 4 boys tend to be a little more woe is me when shit don't go right. And I spend a lot of time with them having to spin the camera around to show the positive. Well, let's look at the wins and let's look at this, and I'll lay out whatever scenario we're talking about. It's like I have to convince them, no, this is good and here's why. Versus we're both right. You're being real and I'm being real, but I'm looking at it from a different perspective.
But it takes so much life experience to be able, at least it did for me, to be able to get there. With my oldest children, if they would have made B teams on sports teams, it really would have affected me. Mm-hmm. And now with some of my youngers, like, it doesn't bother me. My 10-year-old daughter is very good at hockey. I have an argument that I could say she should be on the A team, but I look at this and go, hey, if she's going to kill it on the B team, this might be the confidence that she needs, putting pucks in the back of the net in order whenever she does move up to an A team to be able to really be able to thrive. She's also come home with stories of the locker room where, you know this being a hockey dad, they'll split the ice during practices with the A team on occasion. And she'll bitch about how the A team is just whipping out one comment after another about how they think they're better, they are better, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, all right, kid, you got to remember this. If and when you move up to an A team, don't be an asshole.
Yeah, don't be those guys.
Don't be them to the B team whenever you're 12, 14, 16. Like, you remember exactly what it feels like.
Yeah.
So don't do that in return. And I think I'm taking a similar stance with my youngers compared to my olders about how to try and take life responsibilities. And, my divorce will be finalized here shortly, but we've been separated for a full year. And for the first 3 to 6 months, it was a fucking blame fest.
Yep.
I mean, 100%. Mm-hmm. Even if I could own the things that I did wrong, I would blame her about her response to the things that I did wrong. And now it's like, screw it. It doesn't matter anymore. I just have to own the wrong and try and fix it moving forward. And figure out why I put myself in that situation. Why did I make that decision? And then try and figure out a way to improve. And I think my career mentally helped me with that, because building a sales career is friggin' exhausting, and especially at the beginning, not rewarding. You're not winning. You're not making any money. People around you are winning and people around you are making money. Mm-hmm. And you have to have this stick-to-itiveness with this optimistic outlook that as long as I keep showing up and put my best effort, I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
And then eventually you'll get there. So that mentality is the thing that I'm trying to bring, ironically, in my personal life. So I'm the other way around. I'm not trying to utilize positivity from my personal life to impact my business. I'm trying to bring the positivity that I have in business and the patience that I have in business into my personal life, because that's where I'm weaker.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. So if you're out there and you're trying to figure out, like, why is it that I'm a fucking negative Nancy or a salty Sandy, as you called yourself before?
The good old days.
The salty Sandy, what direction is it coming from?
Right.
Are you ruining part of your home life because business is really friggin' hard? Or are you ruining part of your business life because your home life is really hard? And one or the other is affecting you in whatever camp. Like, it's almost impossible for it not to.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think anybody would agree that an optimistic outlook is a better place to be. But I think somebody stuck in the pessimism world is really struggling to know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm super pessimistic and I sit down with you and I'm like, help me be optimistic, the only thing you can do is like say, well, just make a decision. Like, you have to try and be optimistic. And I'm like, well, I am, but this shit's pissing me off.
Right.
And that's where it comes down to what you said earlier. Like, you have to be able to make the decision. And I wasn't able to make that decision until I had so many things around me crumbling that the only way to even cope was to focus on even small things that were going right, because so many things were going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's where me being the type of personality I am, I wonder, is a overly optimistic person is going to have more trouble managing people? Because if I'm already a generally happy guy, a generally positive guy, it's easy for me to say, well, just make a decision and be optimistic, be happy, be positive. Look at the bright side. Let's lay it out.
Or you could argue that you would give a underperformer more chances than they deserve.
Yep.
Because it's always optimistic. Give them more time, give them more time, give them more time. That could be a weakness as a leader with an overly optimistic mindset.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we all, regardless of attitude, need to, at some point, look in the mirror and assess ourselves and make our decision. Like you said, with your scenario you had at work. I think that whole look in the mirror thing becomes even more important if you're a pessimist. That at a certain point, you got to maybe hit the pause button and evaluate yourself and your own attitude versus what management's trying to do, what your mom and dad is trying to do, and assess your own, here's where I'm at and why is it I'm at where I'm at. And I need to look at me and eliminate all the other answers to why I'm at where I'm at that aren't directly about me.
Yeah, and then the thing that popped in my head too was there are areas in your life that you have complete control over. So your weight, your health, what you eat, do you work out? Like, that's 100% up to you. And if it was a big enough deal, you would do it. Mm-hmm. And you would rearrange your priorities to ensure that it gets done. You would eat differently, you would work out more or at a time that works for you or whatever. And the satisfaction of being fit matches the work ethic that you put in because you earned it.
Right.
I think the hardest areas of pessimism to get out of is when you can successfully justify blaming somebody else.
Right.
When you're overweight, nobody sat you down and shoved pizza in your face.
Right.
Nobody gave you 14 beers at 200 calories apiece, right? You did that to yourself. But when you're at work and you have an asshole coworker or a boss that's riding you or a management team that puts down 1,000 processes, it's very easy to look and say everything would be better if this person or that thing or whatever was gone.
Yeah.
But just like losing weight, you get to decide. So, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to leave the department? Are you going to recommend another solution? Are you going to find another company? Like, because you have to do something. Otherwise, if you're not willing to do anything, then it is happening to you. Because you're not willing to change. You look in the mirror. You're not willing to change.
Right.
So
it just made me think of yesterday, or was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. I was like, I'm tired of being fat. Pass the mashed potatoes, please.
Yeah. I mean, and you get to decide whether or not that's a big enough deal for you. Now, you got to want it. You got to be motivated. You got to be goal-oriented. You have to have a reason, something that gets you to do it. And maybe that's vain. Maybe it's not. But, in your work life, I would say in a way it's analogous to dating. If you find yourself in a shit relationship, you can do what you need to fix that, but ultimately you might have to throw your hands up in the air and say there's just other fish in the sea. Mm-hmm. And that's literally what my ex and I in 2 different timelines did, where it's just like, this isn't working. So regardless of the pain, regardless of the growing pains, regardless of the transition, the fallout, the new responsibilities, whatever you want to call it, you get to vote. Every day you wake up and you get to vote on what you're going to participate in. So maybe it is a pros and cons list of the people in your life, or maybe it is a relationship that needs to die, or maybe it is a weight loss thing, or maybe it is a job that you need to leave, or maybe you just have to grow a pair and sit your boss down and be honest. And be like, I love this job, I'm performing, but I'm pulling my damn hair out because of the stupid ass TPS reports or whatever. But I think the pessimist in general has a stance that their lot in life or the things they don't like in life are happening to them and they don't have control. And the first thing that needs to be done is admitting that you actually have the power to change. You just might be scared.
Yeah. That's the whole look in the mirror.
You're probably just afraid.
Yeah.
Not like you're weak, but like there's just a bit of fear there. Like the unknown. You ever start a new workout routine and you're sore as shit? Just those transitionary things are very, very, very difficult. But as long as you keep showing up every day, putting your best foot forward, then things will improve. And then you'll have yet another circumstance like traffic, or maybe another job that doesn't go your way, or another relationship that doesn't go your way.
I wonder if most people, this is just me thinking out loud, are neither optimists nor pessimists. They're just kind of wandering through life. In other words, most people are just kind of realists, and it's neither realist optimist or realist pessimist. They're just sort of living, not goal setting, not making it, just kind of middle of the road.
Yeah, but are you implying that they enjoy that, or that they've thrown their hands up and just accepted the fact that this is life?
That I wonder if the majority of people out there have just either either they used to be an optimist and a positive thinker and just fell in that rut of life, or the opposite, and fell in that rut of life and work, and they're neither goal setting or blaming or whatever. And
I think that component alone is where the word happiness is applicable.
Yeah.
So happiness is a very subjective thing. But if you are content and happy with the things that you have, somebody like me could come in and argue, yes, but you have the potential to do more. You could be making more money. You could be achieving more. And then that person, if they are content and happy, would say, you could be right, but I'm not going to trade my contentment for more stress in order to have an Audi instead of a Honda.
Yeah. And that's why earlier I said, can pessimists be happy? Because I was thinking, we've been talking, kind of putting optimists
on a pedestal.
Optimists and positive people over here together, and pessimists and negative people together. You know, can a pessimist person, or pessimistic person be happy? Maybe they can. Maybe they are. They are happy being pessimistic. I don't know.
Well, from personal experience, I don't think the word happy is applicable. I think when a pessimistic person has settled into the pessimism so aggressively, that's where they land in the neutral zone that you were just describing, where they've almost thrown their hands up in the air and they're just like, there's just things around me I can't change and I'm screwed.
Right.
And I have no choice but to accept that.
Yeah.
I don't know. You could argue that maybe there's some peace in that, just accepting, to your point, that with your little cliche, that life is a series of what? Obstacles? Problems.
Interrupted by an occasional crisis.
Right. So maybe you can be that is, in a sense, a pessimistic phrase. Like, you're just accepting the fact that life has problems, and then every once in a while, some of those problems are a crisis. But the optimistic side of you is the one that smiles when you say that.
Sure.
Because you know that you know how to handle the problems as they come to you, because you're not looking at them as all catastrophes.
Yeah. I think about some of the pessimistic or realists that I know that would say, Chad, the problem with the way you dream is that you set these dreams so high, then you're going to live your life always disappointed. And that is a very realistic point of view.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I don't see that. What I see is, but if I set the goal at 100 and I hit 90, that's pretty good compared to the 50 I'm at right now. Do you follow me?
I know exactly what you mean.
So pick your thing, if you set dreams and goals so high that even falling short is still a good thing. That's how I look at it.
Yes, but that's your mentality. So going back to the leadership component, part of the goal setting exercise you could help an individual with is understanding how they do that. Mm-hmm. If they don't hit a goal, is it defeating, or is the drive to achieve it and whatever you achieve along the way, even though you didn't hit it, attractive to you? That's how I am in business. Yet again, mm-hmm. I have the right attitude in business. I set the goal really, really high, and even if I'm only hitting 75% of them, I'm still achieving growth and performance.
Right.
But there's an equal number of people, I would guess, that would be debilitating. So they may have to set more realistic goals.
Sure. I look at the realistic version of Jeremy and you, and I'd go, you would say, I want to have 20 offices someday that are all doing, $10 million a year in revenue. And the realist / pessimist would say, Jeremy, that's not realistic, and you're going to just live the next 20 years disappointed. That's too high of a goal. I'd rather set the goal as I want to have 2 offices, which seems very attainable, but almost too easily attainable. Where your attitude would be, but if I only end up with 15 offices at 10 million a year, I didn't reach my goal or my dream, but that's still pretty darn good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I joke that I am, in a way, an insatiable person, which means that I do achieve goals that I go for because, I'm constantly striving. But the flip side of the insatiability is that you are never satisfied with what you have. Oh. So I'm still trying to find the balance with that. I haven't yet. I'm hopeful that I can.
The closest thing I can think of to me for a personal story would be when I was a baseball umpire, amateur baseball umpire. I went into every game trying to be perfect. That was my goal, perfection. And of course, perfection in anything is not attainable. Mm-hmm. Maybe bowling, but only for the one game,
right?
Or
a no-hitter or something.
But you know what I'm saying. And after
actually a perfect game, I guess.
So my goal would be perfection, and after every game, especially at the amateur baseball level, where oftentimes you're umpiring a game all by yourself. So you're calling every ball and strike, and you're calling everything.
A steal to second.
Everything.
Yeah.
And because
which you can barely see.
And every game I'd get in my car, and the handful of like borderline ball strikes or whatever would stand out in your mind. And so you're striving for this, quote, dream up here, that being perfection, knowing you can never hit it, but still being satisfied that you were pretty darn close.
So I thought you were going another direction, because I thought you were going what would you do if you won the lottery? And I've never bought a Powerball ticket in my life, so I don't really even have a desire to win the lottery. I want to earn it. Yeah. But I've always joked the most fun I've ever had at work was when I was a teenager and I was working in restaurants, and it was the busy part of the day, the rush, where I'm cooking. I have 30 tickets in front of me. It's very stressful, but very fun. I didn't like prepping and cleaning in the morning. I didn't like prepping and cleaning in the afternoon. So if I were to have a like outside of volunteering type thing, like if I was super wealthy and work wasn't needed anymore, I could see myself doing that little sliver of that job. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like that in and of itself would be like, I will do this without pay, because even though it's work, it can be legit fun.
Yeah.
That's very tough to find. And I don't know, do you have one like that? Do you have like if I was super loaded, but I need to fill my time, and I can't just golf all the time and sleep all the time. Like, I need to be able to fill my calendar. Everybody should and probably would do a bit of volunteering, whatever that looks like to them. But if there was a work component, but you would do it unpaid for fun because it just flat out you enjoy the labor of it. Do you have something like that?
It probably would be something like going back to umpiring baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because my attitude would be in a different place, because you wouldn't need the money. You'd be doing it purely for the joy and the fun of being on a baseball field.
Yeah.
By the way, if I won the lottery, I know I'd end up broke, because I also have never bought a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
And the reason is I feel like I'd be so guilty. I also feel like I want to earn whatever it is I end up with in life.
Driving a Porsche that I didn't earn, or whatever kind of car, would make me feel weird.
Yeah, you know why I'd end up broke? Is because I'd win $100 million, and I'd end up giving it all away. I'd buy shit, but then I'd end up giving it all away, because it'd be like this. Some fourth cousin on your aunt's side from a step parent would be asking for 50 grand, and I'd be like, I don't know. And then the person would say, come on, man, you didn't even earn it anyways. It was just a lottery.
Oh, yeah,
and I'd be like,
yeah, you're right. You're right.
Here's the 50 grand. And I'd end up giving all my money away anyway.
Well, I mean, I think there is something to the lottery phenomenon, that people lose it all because you didn't have the whatever word you want to use. You
didn't go through the battle.
Yeah, and you didn't you didn't earn it. You didn't have to slave to get it. You didn't have to manage it. You didn't have the pitfalls of making bad decisions and then figuring out that was wrong and fixing it. So you would just take all of your broke habits and just do them on a grander scale.
Until you had no
more money left. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
And money in and of itself, I don't really think money and optimism and pessimism, I don't even know how intertwined they are. Because the more money you make, in a lot of ways, the more problems you bring on to yourself. So just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you're going to be happy. Everybody says money doesn't buy happiness. I just like the Forrest Gump line. It's my favorite thing having to do with money, where Lieutenant Dan invests his money into some fruit company, and he gets the letter in the mail, and they invested in Apple really early.
Yeah.
And he goes, one day I get a call from Lieutenant Dan, and he says, we don't have to worry about money no more. And he goes, well, that's good. One less thing. So that's motivating to me. Like,
Yeah,
if I can
yeah.
make enough money where it's not a problem anymore, well, good. That's one less problem that I have. But going back to your cliche, I'm going to have plenty of other problems, such as life.
Yeah.
So, I think the moral of the story in this discussion is, if you're in a pessimistic rut and you can't see that you are, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
If you have people outside of you telling you that you're in that rut, then you're in a decision-making situation where you probably should decide what you want, because you get to decide. The evolution of switching from pessimism to optimism, I've been working on it really, really hard every day for what seems like a long time now, and I'm still slowly but surely getting there.
But you made a decision.
But
to
I
work
made
on
a
it.
decision.
Yeah.
I'm going to exclude people from my life that are making me miserable. There were battles in my divorce that I chose not to fight, even though I knew that I was in the right. Stupid things like possession splits and things of that nature. That I knew I had a moment where my old self would have fought out of the principle. But I've learned the hard way that there are battles that you can win and then you can lose the war. So I just decided, I don't even care if I actually think I'm getting screwed. I'm intentionally not investing emotion into this negativity anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to take the loss and then hope that I can win the battle. And then at that point, it's a really big pride struggle about taking the L, or feeling like somebody else pulled a fast one on you. It's the notion of why you wanted to catch up to the jackass on the road.
Yeah.
You probably didn't even think about speeding until that guy passed you. It's the same phenomenon that every speeder, it drives us insane. That we will pass somebody and they will speed up to go just as fast as we are. And the immediate argument is, why in the hell weren't you doing that in the first place?
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for me speeding, you would still be going the speed limit, right? So people get really caught in the idea of, wanting to fight a battle that isn't even a battle that should be fought. And you hopefully can smile the next time jackasses like me pass you going 85, because in a weird way, you know that you're winning the war, even though we may have won the battle, quote unquote, to get somewhere 38 seconds faster than you.
Yeah.
Because you're just a happier person because of it.
Yeah. Plus, I think being an optimist gives you hope, and hope is a good thing. Or being a pessimist who's made a choice to be an optimist, now you'll naturally lean toward decisions that will snowball that.
Yeah. Yeah. I immediately thought of Shawshank Redemption when you started talking about hope.
Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I think that is the thing. I had enough things crumble around me that I really needed hope and an outlook that even though this chapter is over, I can rebuild another chapter. And maybe even be happier. It may even be better. And a lot of people give you cliche bullshit advice like that when you're struggling, like I've been. And I've gotten that a lot.
Yeah.
And frankly, in the middle of it, it's not very helpful. When people are like, it's all going to be okay. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Life moves on. Everything will be okay. I believe in myself. But right now, that's not doing shit for me.
Yeah.
But for me, I've just realized those two can simultaneously coincide.
Sure.
I can say in the moment, this is not working, and I just don't like it. Yet at the same time say, make a decision to do something about it, and that's where your hope can come from. And then hope can actually become real in a really shitty situation.
Yeah.
Episode number 10 in the books. This was a tough one for us to bang out. We had a few peeps after reschedule and stuff, so we finally got it done. We're going to come back again, hopefully next week with another episode. We got some guests queued up as well. But this wraps it up. Have a happy new year. Welcome 2020, and we will see you next episode.
Bye-bye.
You just got done listening to Hire and Fire, a production by Pyra Consulting. Please check us out online on either LinkedIn, Facebook, or our website at pyraconsulting.com. That's PIRA consulting.com.